Speaker today, Connie Feutz, an organizer for Troublemakers in Bellingham, Washington. She will be discussing the Troublemakers' philosophy, theory of change, and actions in their effort to mobilize communities into a nonviolent movement to resist the widespread injustice in our current political climate. In her 20s in 1981, Connie was one of two U.S. representatives sent by War Resisters League to an international women's conference against militarism in Scotland. A year later, the American Friends Service Committee, AFSC, sent her to Berlin to meet with other peace activists and to give talks on the other side of America. Her political activism took a back burner with graduate school and raising a family. She is ecstatic to have found Troublemakers as it is her perfect political home. She also has supplemental reading available that we've made available on our website. So welcome, Connie. We're glad you're here.
Susan, thank you. Everyone, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm really, really excited to be here. So thank you for this invite. And to start, what I don't know if you all know is I'm actually from Ferguson, Missouri, right? I was raised in Ferguson, left when I was 18, but I was there long enough, right? So I have a great fondness for Missouri, a lot of fondness for Missouri. But I've been out here in the Pacific Northwest for 40 years. It's also my home out here. So let me give you a little bit of a geographical sense of where I am. So Bellingham, Washington, is actually a lot like Columbia, Missouri. It's a university town. We're about 2/3 the size of Columbia, but that sort of, sweet cultural university place. That's what Bellingham is like. We are also on the coast, the northernmost coast of Washington. We are an hour and a half from the top of Mount Baker. So we're in a beautiful location. But what most people aren't aware of is Bellingham is 20 miles south of the Canadian border. We are very close to Canada up here. We're actually closer to Victoria than we are to Seattle. We're 60 miles to, not Victoria, Vancouver. We're 60 miles from Vancouver, BC. We're 110 miles from Seattle. As I talk about some of our actions in Seattle, give you a sense of location. So yes, I am here to share with you what one grassroots political group is currently doing to counter this democratic backsliding and the rise to authoritarianism that's going on in our country that I know we are all in this group aware of, right? And so let's go to the slides. Give me a second here to get those up and going. And I gotta do this. Okay. Everybody can see that? Is that working? Okay. How to move the needle and while building sustainable communities. So Troublemakers, my political home, Troublemakers. This is who are we? We are a political group intent on protecting democracy, resisting authoritarianism, using a variety of strategies and tactics, including nonviolent direct action, mutual aid, and solidarity. And our focus is on empowering people while building community and having fun. So Troublemakers is a regional group. We are not a national group. It is only in Western Washington. And Troublemakers, excuse me here, Troublemakers started just a year and a half ago in February of 2024. The people who founded Troublemakers, there's about 5 of them, were a part of a larger climate justice group called 350. And 350 began to restructure and decided to move more towards legislative work, petition work, education work, all of which is important with climate justice. But this group said, no, we still want to do our direct actions. Those are really important to us. So they started Troublemakers in Seattle. So I'll give you a sense of what nonviolent direct action looks like and what some of the actions Troublemakers has accomplished. So what do we mean by strategic nonviolence? And we mean strategic nonviolence. And nonviolence is the use of peaceful means to bring about social change. It's the use of peaceful means to resist injustice. This was their first action. This was March of 2024. This is a video Seattle Times has. Meet the older activists hoping to save legacy forests Well, indeed they did. There were two logging actions planned, Carrot and Doc Holiday, in outside of Seattle. And a legacy forest is a forest that was logged before World War II, because it takes a forest a long time to build up its biodiversity and to begin to sequester carbon. And so this logging plan was in forests that were legacy forests. So what this group did, they went out to the forest, they took down the tape marking the trees that were supposed to be cut. So the loggers couldn't find the trees. They videotaped what they were doing. They took this videotape and the tape to our Department of Natural Resources in Olympia and said, this is what we did. We do not want this to happen. There was enough publicity of that indeed those two timber sales did not happen. So that was a couple of their first actions.
Connie, excuse me a second. Your slides are not advancing. I don't know if you are trying to or not.
The second one now.
Oh, good. Okay, that's what we're going to do.
Okay.
I'm going to make it nice and big, if that helps.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry about this, guys.
No.
It's no problem.
Okay, here we are. This is Troublemakers. So as I was saying, Troublemakers, well, I said it was a regional group. We've said all that. Started a year and a half ago. It added. Oh, sorry. We don't want that. When I hit return, it adds a slide rather than just going. Okay, what do we mean by strategic nonviolence? This was the timber sale where they went to the Department of Natural Resources and stopped those two sales. This action, this was last year, Amazon Prime Day. Remember, they started out as a climate justice group. This action was organized by Jim Ace. He's one of their founders. Jim Ace is the activist up here who vetted me. He's in Bellingham. So Prime Day. This is a great example of a nonviolent direct action because it takes dozens of people behind the scenes to make this happen. And the action itself probably lasted 6 or 8 hours, right? So what they did is, this is 6th Avenue in Seattle, and that building behind is Amazon headquarters. So what they did is they rented trucks, they rented equipment to look like city road workers, they had the vests, the hard hats, and they had these trucks at either end of 6th Avenue waiting for when the light changed. When the light changed, they jumped out, they had these huge arrows, flashing arrows, directing cars away from this block. They barricaded both ends of the block, right? They just jumped out immediately. And then they put down a 20 foot by 60 foot stencil. They began to paint the sidewalk in front of Amazon Prime. So what also happened was the police came, as they do, as they're supposed to do, but there was one particular belligerent sergeant who did not like what was happening, and he went around knocking over things, kicking paint supplies and all. And then when that didn't stop the activists, he got into his police SUV, and there was an activist, there's a woman, a gray-haired woman, painting, and he drove over her, so she was under his car, right? He drove slow enough, he didn't hit her. The police around him were going, Joe, what the heck are you doing, right? He did get reprimanded 2 to 3 weeks of what? Paid leave, right? But so they stenciled 6th Avenue. This was the message using all of Amazon's fonts: prime polluter, Amazon, wrong way on climate. All of these ways that Amazon could go away from fossil fuels with its planes, their ships, their trucks. There's all kinds of ways that they could change their policies, which they refused to do. So this was advertising this, was publicizing this. They also had a group of activists on the streets carrying these boxes: Amazon deliver change, Amazon deliver change. That's what we're wanting. So that's a great example of nonviolent direct action. But notice that it takes dozens of people, weeks, if not months, to organize this plan. There's people with all kinds of skills, from printing skills to organizing skills, planning skills, whatnot. So then came November, right? Which was a shock to all of us. And as we all know, Donald Trump and his allies are following the autocrats' playbook. It's very clear. polarizing the populace, but also isolating us, sowing confusion and fear, distraction, overwhelm, maximum anticipatory obedience with implied threats of repression and economic retaliation. That's what he's doing with the law firms. That's what he's doing with the universities. Maximum anticipatory obedience. Repress dissent, block citizen and government efforts to hold the government accountable, demonize and weaken the press, weaken and threaten our independent judiciary system, and extend executive power while simultaneously weakening government institutions. Those are the steps. Putin used them. Orban in Hungary used them. Erdogan in Turkey used them. They're just really clear. There is a playbook for autocrats. And there was a playbook for team democracy. We have a playbook as well. We know what we are doing. This is why it's so exciting, like you mentioned with Erica Chenoweth's work. What we call team democracy goals. So we know we can't stop what's happening. That what they're doing is beyond our control. But we can slow it down. We can slow it down with the intention and goal to mobilize enough people to eventually stop it, to organize a broad and vibrant movement to reverse it, like the $1 Million movements that I don't know who said they're doing it, but bless you, that's exactly what the program is. So these are just some of our strategies to absolutely maintain nonviolent discipline, to stop anticipatory obedience, non-cooperation, and this is from slow down strikes to civil disobedience, of different forms of non-cooperation, solidarity with the affected, the marginalized groups, absolutely, and to be ready for trigger events, which we'll talk a little bit more about. So for troublemakers, this is one of our theories of change. If you've seen this, we call it the pillars of power. It's a theory of change. And so up here is the dictator. Up here is the autocrat at the very top, the leadership. What holds that person up is elites. And then these pillars of power. In this diagram, it's bureaucratic, economic, security, educational, religious, ethnic. And then down here is the whole population. As long as we are compliant, we are also holding this up, as long as we are cooperating with what's happening. And so our theory of change in Troublemakers was that, okay, who are these pillars holding him up? And the idea is to identify these pillars and then to strategize how to weaken or disrupt them. Okay, let me do this here. Yeah. To strategize how to weaken or disrupt them. So the first pillar we went after was this pillar of support for Trump. So basically what happened was Trump got elected in November. I heard about Troublemakers in January. I signed up in February. I got vetted by Jim. So back then, just 6 months ago, Troublemakers had 100 people. Troublemakers is not looking for members, they're looking for activists. So you get vetted to see if you're a match, 1-to-1. Back then it was 1-to-1 because there were just 100 people in the system. Jim and I met up here in Bellingham, and I told him, I don't want to drive to Seattle for all these actions. I want us to do something up here. So Bellingham has a motto, and our motto is, we are the city of subdued excitement. We are very laid back. He was rather skeptical that we could get anything going in Bellingham, and I said, well, I want to try to get something going in Bellingham. So I joined. We now Troublemakers as of today has 700 activists. These are activists and organizers. Bellingham, we now have 70, of which I would say about half are activists, and the others do what they can do and show up and support us in any way they can. So Troublemakers' first strategy was to tackle Tesla. Tesla takedown, I'm sure you've heard about it, started in Seattle with 8 people going to a Tesla showroom. You may be familiar that Tesla does not he has showrooms, not auto places where you can go and drive off on auto lot. You have to go and look at the things on a computer, and you buy your car on a computer. So it's Tesla's showrooms. And so they started in February. And then in March, like I mentioned in some of the things I sent you, Musk went on X and wrote this post. Basically, an investigation has found 5 Act Blue funded groups responsible for Tesla protests. Troublemakers was #1. We were so proud of that. And then they say their funders include George Soros, et cetera, et cetera. We all look at our bank account and say, we have $200. Where's George? We could really use George right now. But then they say under investigation for foreign and illegal donations. Oh, excuse me. Where do we go here? So that was March 8th. March 13th. Well, no, it was after this. And he says, if you know anything, please post. That was when he, if you're familiar with the term doxing, that's when he doxed our head honcho, Valerie Costa, who's an amazing long-term activist. Meaning doxing is putting information out in the public realm, i.e. X, that was not without compliance, without permission. So they gave her emails, her work number, her workplace, her work numbers, her home address. I don't even know if he got her bank accounts numbers, right? I mean, he has so much information.
Yeah,
And then she got reamed. She had to get security police. She had to get cameras. She had to get lawyers, the whole thing in response to this intrusion in her life. And that's when she wrote the piece for The Guardian, if you're familiar with The Guardian, that incredible opinion piece. She wrote it 5 days later on the 13th of March, that Elon Musk targeted me over Tesla protests. That proves our movement is working. It's an incredible piece. So that's Valerie. So then March 29th, thousands of people attended peaceful protests at Tesla dealerships. Tesla takedown said protests occurred in more than 250 cities around the world. This has become a global campaign against Tesla. I don't know if any of you saw this at the Tesla Gigafactory in Berlin. This is projection art. We have a projection artist here in Bellingham. It's this huge, big, thick camera, lights that it's battery run. They carry a big battery pack with them. And this is a screen they put in it to project. And someone in Berlin projected this on the Tesla Gigafactory. Heil Tesla, right? This is nonviolent direct action. And so since the beginning, Tesla stock has experienced a significant downturn since the beginning of the year. The stock is down 40%. Tesla sales worldwide are down 14%. Tesla's market capitalization has been impacted with a reported 380 billion wiped out, making it the biggest loss among top companies in 2025. That is what we try to do with this theory of pillars of power. We want to disrupt and weaken these pillars of power while we are building a larger, broad-based movement, which is what a lot of organizations are doing around the country, which is fabulous. So the next, and actually this would be, it comes up in pieces if I were to show the slideshow rather than this, but that's okay. I have to figure out that error that's going on. Palantir, if you're familiar with Palantir, Palantir was founded by Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel funded J.D. Vance's rise in politics. It funded his rise into the Ohio Senate, or the Senate seat for Ohio in the U.S. Senate. And now he also he basically is very close with J.D. Vance and keeping J.D. Vance in the White House. This is what Palantir says on their website. We create software that solves complex problems such as national security threats, disease tracking, and financial crimes. They create software that's used for surveillance. That's what they do. And so this is also what Palantir does. Well, it built its business by embracing government defense contracts. It created a centralized database across IRS, ICE, and other government agencies to track, survey, and target people. Surveil. Has contracts with the United States Department of Defense, IRS, and ICE. Has contracts with the Israeli government. Has a $30 million contract with ICE. So the other image, one of the images on their website is this one. AI-powered automation for every decision, like being a soldier surveilling people to kill them, right? So I don't know if you're familiar with Jewish Voices for Peace. They are an amazing, amazing organization. They organized the civil disobedience last July, like 6 weeks ago. They invited troublemakers because that's what we do is nonviolent direct action. So I was at this action. I was one of the people willing to be arrested. So the Jewish Voices for Peace, again, months of production and figuring this out. So I'll tell you this. I joined. I said, yes, I'm willing to be arrested. And we were only told to be in Seattle at 7 o'clock on Monday morning. We weren't told where we were going. We weren't told to whom we were going because they keep it so secret. This is all on Signal. They still wouldn't even tell us on Signal where we were going. And so the Friday before that Monday, they gave us a Zoom talk with a attorney from ACLU to answer any questions. We knew we were blockading a building. We didn't know what building or which corporation. Learned all kinds of interesting things as a newbie to civil disobedience. For example, we were blockading people going to work. That's a misdemeanor. But if I'm blocking a door, which I was, if I don't let the person out, that's kidnapping. That's a felony. So let people out, just don't let people in. Learned all kinds of things. And then on Saturday, they had a 3-hour training that was just amazing, so smooth with a PowerPoint. They had a diagram of this building. So Palantir's in Seattle in this nondescript office building with absolutely no identification that they are there. After the action, when I could speak to my many friends in Seattle, none of them knew that Palantir was in Seattle. He did not want Seattle to know. Also, Washington State out of genocidal tech, meaning Washington. Part of this campaign was to get Washington State to divest out of Palantir. They invest in Palantir as a local corporation, right? So, and what you don't see is on the side of this image is an alley that leads to the parking lot. So we were told to show up in Seattle at 7 o'clock. They put us in a park. We walked here to the space. We each went to our separate, there were 5 doors we were blocking. Each cell went to its separate spot and set up. And they had cars and bicycle brigades blocking so that workers could not get into the parking lot. And so some more images of this is us. Divest from genocide. Because the chants outside there, they were doing chants and talks and speakers basically about genocide in Gaza. And it was nice. Some of the people walking by said that this was the first pro-Palestinian protest they had heard that wasn't angry. We were just very clear about what we were fighting for. So this is the inside the building. I was outside the building in the cell, blocking the doors. That's little me right there. And what we have is the red, those of us in the back line are the red people. We are willing to be arrested. The people in front of us are yellow. They really don't want to be arrested. And typically at actions like this, the police will give you warnings and sometimes multiple warnings. Please disperse, please disperse. And the people who are yellow can leave anytime. Well, we all could leave anytime. It's voluntary. The police did show up. Oh, I should tell you this. At this action, and we had a police liaison. We had a jail support team there active, which means there was a contact number if we got arrested that we wrote in magic marker on our bellies. They didn't want us on our arms because that could be photographed and they would have that phone number. There was a Care Bear team, people going around with water and snacks to keep us going. There was a de-escalation team because we were trained. We do not, the people that want to get in the building, you don't talk to them because they could be very upset. We are all trained in de-escalation. I'm trained in de-escalation and peacekeeping, but that's not what I'm doing there. I'm blockading that door. So they have a de-escalation team. They had a media team. They had a medics team. And this is what I mean. There are so many opportunities for things you can do that are not about being arrested. Notice our team. We're white. We're white. And there's a reason for that. We are saying, you know, if I get arrested, the police are going to treat me differently. They're going to treat a person of color or a trans person or a queer person. They're going to treat those people differently if they get arrested. I was even taught by some of these women who've been arrested many times that, oh, when they take you and they put your hands behind your back, you know, say, oh, I've had shoulder replacement. Could I have 2 handcuffs, not just 1? Because you can be in handcuffs for a long time. And they do it. They do it for white middle-class people, typically speaking. So the police are at both ends. They did not come and arrest us. They stood there, and our police liaison believes what happened was this. we were not really breaking many laws. We were not causing too much of a fuss. And typically, the police are in contact with the business that's being impacted, in this case, Palantir. And typically, when it's like this, Palantir doesn't want to get in the news. And if they arrested us, when people get arrested, things happen. People trip and stumble. They're charged with this. They have pictures of, dragging gray-haired women down the street. They don't want that publicity. So our hunch is they told the police, don't. This action was happening simultaneously in 5 other cities. That's how organized it was with Jewish Voices for Peace in 5 other cities at different Palantir offices. Our goal was to stop production for that day, and we did. They emailed all of their workers to not come into work. The workers were not upset with us, actually. They walked up, they looked, they heard the songs, and they went to the bench in the sun, pulled out their phones. I mean, they didn't seem distressed at all. There was no one who was disruptive. Well, there was one disruptive employee, but just one. And the idea is that, again, we're not going to stop them. We want to target the pillars and weaken them. And so this is the beginning of a long-time campaign with Palantir. This is not a one-time event. When we talk about strategy, we're talking about a long-term process. So that's Seattle, that's civil disobedience, because when we look at our theory of change, the pillars of power are in Seattle. In little old Bellingham, we don't have pillars of power. So we've had to really think about, what are we doing to move the needle? What are we doing about this moment in time? Because we don't have places that matter. I think I've already mentioned about our 10 representatives. 2 are Republican, but they stood up to Trump. They were the 2 of the 10 House representatives that voted to impeach him. So we're not going to target them. So we've come up with this plan in Bellingham to mobilize and energize our citizens, to build community bonding and cohesion, to educate. And we have trainings that we offer in nonviolent de-escalation, peacekeeping, knowing your rights, and non-compliance. We offer these trainings for free in Bellingham. The thinking is this, as we'll go on further with the movement is to destabilize, to weaken these pillars of power while building a broad-based, multicultural, multi-generational, cross-class movement, because it needs to be a broad-based movement that stops authoritarianism. And so we're mobilizing, energizing our citizens. We're trying to counter the elements of autocracy that want to isolate and create fear and impotency, feeling powerless. We're trying to mobilize people, getting together with people, educating, to say we can do something. We do have power. So one of our local actions, which was the No Kings rally in June, they're going to do another No Kings rally October 18th. There's a national No Kings 2 happening that we are now getting together to decide what our actions will be. This is what we did in Bellingham. Bellingham, like I said, Columbia, we had 6,000 people show up at our No Kings rally. 6,000 people. That's a darn good number for a tiny town. This was our contribution to that rally. That's our banner, Bellingham Troublemakers. What we decided to do is we're going to say, people, come write President Trump a birthday card. Come give him your wishes. And then we posted the birthday cards all around with this fishnet. We collected 550 of the most creative cards. People were venting right and left to President Trump with these cards. And then a friend of mine who's a photographer, I had her go out and she took these little automatic shots of people's pictures of the people there, the rallies. Like I said, we collected 550 of these. Let's see here. And then we hung those pictures that she took. This picture I want you to notice. This is Phyllis. I'm going to show you Phyllis. She was at our rally. Phyllis is 98 years old, and she comes to these rallies. She came to Bellingham in 1943 to go to a teacher's college, right? And there she is. Phyllis is one of our favorite activists in Bellingham. And then we also, next to that place with the cards, we did Donnie Doge Ball, D-O-G-E. You got to throw Nerf balls at Donnie. Pretty. He has Project 2025 in his hand there. So they would throw Nerf balls and Donnie would fall down, right? I was one of the two Donnies. It was a very hot mask. So that was our direct action, nonviolent direct action. The reason we did this wasn't just foolhardy. I don't know if any of you saw the piece that Nicholas Kristof wrote for the New York Times in May, titled Three Well-Tested Ways to Undermine an Autocrat. This was in the New York Times in May by Nicholas Kristof, an opinion piece. Three well-tested ways. Well, the first well-tested way is mockery. Mockery and humor and humor. And so that's what we're doing. We are doing that. So why is our movement nonviolent? Because it works. Because nonviolent direct action goes hand in hand with building a cohesive, powerful, multiracial, multigenerational, cross-class, and humanitarian people-powered mass movement. Because a nonviolent movement attracts a wider range of participants. And then we go to Erica Chenoweth, right? This great researcher. Those of you who don't know Erica, she's now a researcher at Harvard. She went in her undergraduate studies, I think it was Ohio. She was studying military science. She wanted to be an Army officer. That was her intention. And she went to ROTC for a while, became a researcher. A friend of hers took her to a nonviolent conference, a conference on nonviolent campaigns. And she was the person that said, "This is ridiculous. What do you mean? You're so naive. What are you guys thinking? You can't create democracy with using nonviolence." And the one of the heads of the conference said to her, "You're right. You're right. We need research. Will you join me?" And Erica's response was, "I'll join your research as long as you guarantee that we publicize whatever the results are." And the person said, "Of course, of course." So Erica joined. It was 2 years of research of violent and nonviolent movements to overthrow a dictatorial or authoritarian government. They studied 323 campaigns worldwide from the past 100 years. They would code a case successful only if it achieved the full removal of the incumbent leader. That was a success in their book. Nonviolent campaigns were twice as likely to succeed as violent campaigns. And this is the 3.5% rule. If you go to rallies, you'll see people with the sign 3.5%. No campaigns failed once they achieved the active and sustained participation of just 3.5% of the population. And lots of them succeeded with far less than that. Lots of them. In our country, that's 11.5 million people that we need to get 3.5. We might get it with less than that, active and sustained participation. Power ultimately rests not in the grip of presidents, generals, and billionaires, but in the hands of the millions of ordinary people who keep society running smoothly on a day-to-day basis and who can shut it down if they choose. This is the meaning of people power. So going back to our theory of change, notice it is the population holding all of this up. Okay? That's us. Again, as we identify and tackle the pillars of power. So repeating this statement, the active and sustained participation of 3.5%. How do we achieve the active and sustained participation of our populace? That's been really what I think about our goal in Bellingham, since we don't have corporations in Bellingham to tackle. How do we support and create a more active and sustained participation in the populace? Well, for us, one of the ways was it's these trainings we're doing, it's the education, it's encouraging people to get out. Here we go. Building community bonding and cohesion, meeting folks one-on-one, neighborhood potluck social gatherings where politics are not discussed. I'll talk about that in a second. Absolutely supporting our marginalized groups and education in the form of any of these trainings. We have a group in Bellingham is building what they call Birchwood Solidarity. We have neighborhoods in Bellingham. We have lovely neighborhoods. And these neighborhoods, one by one, are coming together to gather for potluck social gatherings where you get to know your neighbors, mutual aid. In Birchwood, what they do is they go to the apartment buildings, they knock on the door, and if people answer, people are saying, "What are you trying to sell me? We're not selling anything." They give them a flyer for a potluck where they serve hamburgers and hot dogs. And come to this potluck. Get to know your neighbors. Get to know who each other is. Get to know if they have children, if they need rides to the doctor. Is it a person gets a hard time getting out of the house and can I bring you food? Get to know your neighbors without discussing politics. The idea is that let's bond as people, remembering that we have more in common with the people who voted for Trump than we are different from them. We want our streets safe. We want our children safe in our schools. We want to have food on the table. We want to be able to afford food when we go to the grocery store and not work on our bills. We want clean water, clean air. We want free elections, right? There's so much more we have in common that's neighborly. And so to cross over that to the best of our ability to build this strong, broad-based movement. And we do this to be ready for those of you who may have read or just know eventually about trigger events. In every successful nonviolent campaign, there was a trigger event or many. In the civil rights movement, we had many trigger events. Rosa Parks. Are you familiar with Bull Connor in Birmingham? He was a commissioner. I thought he was a sheriff, but he was a commissioner. He ordered the use of fire hoses and police dogs on teenage and black protesters in Birmingham in 1963. What happened was, excuse me here, where am I? Is that these things got publicized. The news picked them up. The newspapers picked them up. They saw Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks was not the first black person trying to sit in the front of a bus who got arrested and pulled off the bus, often very aggressively and brutally. She wasn't the first, and she was an activist. They knew exactly what they were doing. This was strategic. This was because they wanted an older woman, black, arrested, roughed up, so they could put it in the media. Same with Bull Connor. Because it hit the television that it hit. So it's one thing to hear about police brutality. It's a whole other thing to watch what happened to George Floyd. It's one thing, to hear about people living in tenement houses and feeling afraid. It's another thing to see it, to visualize these human beings being traumatized. And then Gandhi's Salt March was another trigger event. When these trigger events happen, it galvanizes people, and we need them to have a channel to join to make their points clear. We need to know they're not alone. So we are waiting for, there will be trigger events. You never know what they are until they happen. You cannot predict what they will be. So what can our communities do? What can each of us do as individuals to prepare for what's ahead? This one, fight any urge you might feel to believe that you are powerless, that there's nothing you can do. That is so not true. That's exactly what the autocrats want us to believe. That's what they're partly doing with this flooding in the media of all these things happening on all these fronts all at the same time. The judiciary, the law firms, the institutions, right? And the government, the people being fired. They're trying to overwhelm us, and it works. Actually, it's very easy to feel overwhelmed. I want you to fight any urge you feel to believe that's true, because it is not true. And I want you to assess if looking at the news aids you in keeping up your energy and your hope. The news is so depressing. And the news doesn't cover what the activists are doing. You don't see what the nonviolent direct action. Google neighborhoods or neighbors who stopped ICE. It's all over the country. People jumping out, seeing ICE coming to get a neighbor, and they come and they surround that neighbor, people power, because the ICE cannot disrupt a human without it be calling assault, and they then videotape it, right? It's happening all over the country. But neighbors are going, wait, stop, right out of the blue, just spontaneously. There are so many things happening. Well, I'll say this, the climate justice action that Jim did last year, you saw, his group did another one this year where they hired a top firm who does polls, a top national firm, and they polled like 5,000 Prime subscribers. They just polled them, right? This is a completely research-based scientific poll that really showed Prime, people that buy Prime on Amazon really are upset. They would like it to be carbon free. They would like Bezos to do more about the environment, right? A huge number. Not a single newspaper picked it up. Not a single newspaper picked it up. And our belief is because newspapers are struggling, they're a business. I get it. They've got to pay their editors and their reporters. They're laying people off. It's a struggle. And on their online news, they have little icons for Amazon. And when people click on that, the newspaper gets a kickback. They get money. They're not going to publish anything against Bezos and Prime, right? There's a whole lot you're not seeing in the news. Can assess if it aids you in keeping up your energy and your hope. Look for the news that tells you what's also going on under the current that the newspapers are not picking up. Ask, what skills do I have to offer and what brings me joy? When someone joins Troublemakers and I onboard them into Troublemakers and I vet them, that's what I ask. Well, what skills do you have and what brings you joy? How would you like to contribute? Because we are in this for the long haul. This is, the average time, I think Erica wrote this, the average length of time, where did I go? Is 9 years to bring down an autocrat. 9 years. We could be in this for the long haul. We may not be successful, may not be, but we have to keep trying. Self-care is absolutely important. And so many people that want to join and who do join Troublemakers come to me and say, oh, gosh, I'm a single mom of a special needs child. I don't have much time. I go, you just do what you can. Or someone else who's taking care of elderly parents. I go, absolutely, you do what you can and take care of yourself because this is for the long haul. And if 100 people can give an hour a month, that's 100 hours. An hour a month is enough, We just need people. Of course, I know you all are voting. Absolutely, the letters and the calls and the emails to our representatives matter. That's a numbers game they play. That really matters. Non-cooperation from strikes to civil disobedience, and then absolutely solidarity with our unions, our teachers, our marginalized groups, the immigrants, the queer and trans, working poor, the homeless. This is the path to building this broad-based movement. Reach across the political divide as much as you can. Absolutely, there are people on either. I'll tell you this, I'm a peacekeeper at these rallies. If there's not an action, because I'll be at the action, I'm a peacekeeper. In our last 3 rallies in Bellingham, it's been the pro-trans person or the pro-women reproductive rights person who's been the aggressor, not the counter-protester. It's not just the counter-protesters. We have to de-escalate our own people, but reach across the political divide if you can. Talk to people and find common ground. Don't get into who voted for whom. Mutual aid. Like I say, building neighborhood unions, creating food banks, being ready for the trigger event. Get off social media if you can. I've never been on social media, but one of our core members is a graduate student here, and she talks about all the algorithms and how it controls what you see on social media. And plus, anything you do that's free on the web, from Google, Gmail, to social, to Facebook, to Instagram, anything that's free, that company has full permission to use all of your information, period. That's what that means. That's the devil's thing you're doing. They have full permission to anything you put on, anything, your name, information, they have permission because it's free. Create and attend social gatherings. Get out of the house, meet with people, interact one-to-one. Let's break down the isolation that the autocrats would like us to fall into, and absolutely maintaining nonviolent discipline. So I know I'm going fast here, but is there a silver lining to all this? I'm just going to postulate this in terms of feeling hope. And why won't my things go? There we go. Oops, what happened? There it is. Before Donald Trump's second presidency, there was so much, and there still is a lot of complacency in our country about democracy. We just believed it would keep rolling without us having to do anything, without doing anything. We believed our democracy was going to survive. We didn't question. Boy, what he and his allies have done. They've helped us see how fragile this democracy actually is. It's helped us see the various loopholes in it. Congress is one of his pillars, by the way. Both Democrats and Republicans are one of his pillars. We're seeing the loopholes. We're seeing what happens when you can put certain people in the Supreme Court who are on your side. We are seeing the loopholes in democracy. And if nothing else, can we learn, if we get past this in my lifetime, can we learn what the new democracy needs to look like? First of all, our current Constitution was written by white male slave owners, period. It was for landowners. That's what our Constitution's based on. For all of its positives, that's its structure.
Connie, I know we got a late start, but we need to probably wrap things up pretty quickly.
I'll do this. We have a plan, they work. And this is the first agreement of Troublemakers that drew me in. When we join Troublemakers, you have to agree to 14 things. We find joy in our work. It's an honor to be able to serve this world. We value humor, beauty, and love in our actions. So thank you all. And I'm so sorry about my techno problems. I need to figure that out with this.
Those things happen. It's no big deal. Does anybody have any questions for Connie? You'll have to unmute yourself if you do. Lee and Eric.
That's me clapping.
Oh, clapping. Okay. Yeah. Great presentation, Connie.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Sorry. I'll have to figure this out. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, Connie. It was fabulous. Opened my eyes a lot more. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we really appreciate you doing this for us. And once again, thanks for coming. And if we don't have any questions, we'll just let Connie go on. So,
And so you have my email.